would like some pictures. Maybe you guys can stand up. Yep. Behind us, or come down, it doesn't really matter. Who would like to, thank you so much.
Come on
Here we
this
go,
side.
here we go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I need to work on my breathing. Okay. Next, we have a report from the Guilford County Sheriff's
Mayor,
Office.
I'm sorry, did you approve the minutes?
Oh, no, we did not. Oops. All right, next we have approval of minutes from the October 3rd, 2024 regular meeting. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the October 3rd meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you for keeping me straight. Now we get the report from the County Sheriff's Office. I don't believe we have anyone here, but the statistics are in the back. So if you're interested in the crime statistics, they are on the back table. Okay, report from the Oak Ridge Fire Department, which appears to be very well represented tonight.
Hi, I'm Lieutenant Ritchie with the Fire Department. This is most of B shift. We're minus our captain tonight. He's doing some personal stuff. So the month of October was pretty good for us. Our members completed 286 hours of training, and a lot of that training was in our new training facility that we're very excited about. It's a great thing for us. It's great for us to be able to get out there and practice like we should be playing. We ran a total of 88 calls in the month of October. 41 of those were medical-related calls. 5 of those were motor vehicle accidents. 14 were false alarm calls. We had 1 gas leak, and the rest of those were going to be calls for service, such as lift assists or vehicle lockouts, things like that. And our safety message we're pushing this month is address signs. So if the fire department, EMS, and the sheriff's office cannot find your address, and it's actually harder than you think it is in neighborhoods, reflective address signs are a big thing that we're pushing right now, because the faster that we can get to you and the faster that we can help you is much better. We sell the address signs at the fire station. You don't have to buy them from us. You can get them from wherever. And I also know that a lot of HOA neighborhoods have regulations on some of that stuff as well. But I will say, if they're not reflective, they're really hard for us to see at night, even if they're plainly on the mailbox during the day. So just something to think about. Any questions that y'all have for me?
Thank you as always.
Thank you, and thank you very much for y'all support. Y'all have a good night.
Thanks.
Okay, we open up our public comments. This is a period where you can come up and speak for 3 minutes. Just state your name and address. Bill, I think your hand went up faster than anyone else's.
Good evening. I'm Bill Goebel, 1402 West Ridge Road, Greensboro, North Carolina. I've come here today to thank the people of Oak Ridge and folks in this room for support over the last year and a half. It's been an interesting 18 months, and I've kind of written a statement. So I want to thank the voters of Oak Ridge. I want to thank all the endorsements that I got, the poll workers, the financial contributors who supported us, meaning my wife and I, for running for school board. The results just show the power of a political party. It's very difficult to run unaffiliated. And Dory and I are not sad over this, not at all. We are very happy that the people have spoken, and we honor that. And we say our congratulations to David Coates for his victory, and he has our full support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Patty, little faster than you, Martha.
Patty Domchowski, 7320 Hidden View Drive. I'd just like to comment on the electronic taping of committee meetings, special events. Just some background, I retired from a major corporation after 35 years of service, so I'm familiar with all the protocols at business meetings and the need to record some meetings. As mentioned at the last meeting by Ben Walraven, we found out that none of the surrounding towns, Stokesdale, Summerfield, Kernersville, or High Point, record our equivalent meetings. Special events is a unique committee in that we brainstorm many ideas. from the ridiculous to solid ideas. This unique committee has been in existence for over 5 years and has developed a number of wonderful events for the town of Oak Ridge. I record the detailed minutes following Robert's rules and usually have them ready the next day to be put on the website and available for all to read. I have never been personally contacted on an issue that has arisen from any of our meetings. Our meetings are announced monthly via the website and social media, inviting all interested folks, and I know my members, when they are out and about, and they always ask folks if they would like to join our meeting. We submit an annual budget and reconcile it on a regular basis. We've had the majority of our committee for the past 5 years. The majority of them are retired or onto their second life career. They join just to be a part of a fun committee and participate in areas that interest them. I know definitely that one person will resign from my committee, and the rest of the committee are not in favor of the electronic taping. I feel very strongly that we will lose the creativity and spontaneity of the group. I fully understand the need to tape some committees, but I don't feel that special events falls under this umbrella. Thank you.
Next, Martha.
I didn't know Patty was taller than I am. Martha Pittman, 8018 Fogelman Road, Oak Ridge. I speak tonight to express my opposition to the recording of town committee meetings. This proposal adds no value to the work of our volunteer committees. On the contrary, it will stifle creativity, sow distrust, and discourage citizens from serving our town as volunteers. Great things are possible when individuals work together in a climate where the free exchange of ideas and information is encouraged. If recorded, committee members will not feel free to speak candidly or throw ideas around. The fear that recordings will be weaponized with statements pulled out of context to target committees or their members is real. If the objective is transparency, it is redundant. All committee meetings are open to the public, and everyone is welcome. Or residents can simply have a conversation with a committee member about issues that they're interested in, just as every member of that council can talk to every member of every committee. No one has anything to hide. Town volunteers relish the opportunity to discuss the work they do because they're proud of the work that they do and they love serving their community. This ill-perceived need to know who said what and every idea discussed is burdensome to committees when they have no power to act on anything without council's approval. Let us do our work and bring recommendations to you for review, public debate, public comment, and either approval or disapproval. Adoption of this policy to record all meetings will cause you to lose valuable human assets and corporate memory. It will endanger the culture of trust, dedication, and enthusiasm that our town's volunteers have thrived in. Instead, it says, we don't value you and we don't trust you. I will add that I'm open to Zoom access without recording the meetings via the Zoom app. If you require Zoom access and then allow or require those meetings to be recorded, all you're doing is taking a sheepskin and throwing it over the wolf's back, saying it's different when the effect on our committees is the same. Quit trying to fix what isn't broken and let all of us get on with the work that benefits the Oak Ridge residents. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Farrell, 5839 Billet Road in Oak Ridge. I'm here tonight to ask Town Council to vote no on the request to record all committee and public meetings conducted by the town. This request does not come without discussion and feedback from others. I've talked with members of the Town Council, fellow committee members on the Conservation Easement and MST committees, and fellow citizens in Oak Ridge. I've even run this idea by work colleagues in other states to get their comments on the idea. After much thought and feedback, I'd like to share 3 reasons for why you should vote no. Reason number 1, recording the meetings, especially those of committees such as the MST or Conservation Easement, which are considered more working groups, would significantly change the tone and tenure of these meetings. Conversations, which are often brainstorming in nature, may not happen in fear that someone listening to the recording may take something out of context or mischaracterize the reason for the discussion. The MST and Conservation Easement Committees report to you, the Town Council, on our activities when we have reached milestones on projects that we work on according to the guidelines and guidance set forth by you, the Town Council. We work as advisors, not decision makers. Recordings could lead to misunderstanding and confusion about subjects that have not yet reached a point where they are ready to be reported on. This also runs the risk of having particular committee members caught out for things they say during the course of discussion, which also may lead to misunderstandings. Reason number 2, there's simply no value for meetings to be recorded when there are options for either attending the meeting in person or reading about what occurred during the meeting afterwards. Meetings are open to the public and all are welcome to attend. At times, we have also provided access to the meetings via Zoom for those who cannot attend in person. As you know, records of the meetings are kept via written minutes, which are available to the public on the town website. If there are questions regarding those minutes or the activities of the committees, anyone can reach out to the chairs of the committees, as their contact information is also provided by the town website. And my experience, like Patty's, has been that no one has ever reached out with questions about the minutes or the committee's activities. Reason number 3, there's a consensus amongst committee members in the town that this is not only not needed but not wanted. Several members have clearly stated that they will no longer serve on committees if this is approved. Our town may be led by the Town Council and managed by town staff, but it is powered by the numerous volunteers who give of their time and expertise to participate on these committees. The town runs the risk of losing valuable resources in these committee members should they step down. Imagine the challenge of trying to recruit new members when they ask why so many have left at once. In conclusion, considering the reasons that I've outlined, I have to ask, is this proposal a solution in search of a problem? If there's concern that meeting minutes are not detailed enough to get an idea of the committee's activities, guidelines should be developed for what's expected and needed for transparency. If they needed to be discussed in detail, members should reach out, or members of the public should reach out to committee chairs to have a discussion and open dialogue, which also should be encouraged. Let's work towards building a more open, transparent, in-person process rather than surveilling members. Thank you for your consideration, and please vote no on this proposal.
Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Ben Walraven, 5931 Pepper Road. Since the last meeting where this subject first came up, talking about recording all committee meetings, I've talked to some additional committees, and it's clear that the committee members feel like there's an element of distrust that's being sort of waved around. And I can't imagine that any of you would want to put out there that you want to discourage volunteerism in an activity that brings a community together. It's just unfathomable to me. So I understand people can't be in all places at all times. That's reality. But don't hold all the volunteers responsible for everyone's schedules. We have open meetings. You can read our minutes. We abide by the rules that you set down. And now you want to put another onerous regulation on us? It just doesn't fly. Plus, you're going to have to keep track of all these minutes and all these meetings. And what if something legal comes up and these recordings are subpoenaed and something comes out that was an innocent remark that you have to defend in a court of law? This is ridiculous. Please, let sense overrule this.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, Ms. Jenkins.
John Jenkins, 6700 Ashton Park Drive. I cannot be quite as eloquent as all the other people have spoken before me, but I support everything that they've said. I have, since the last meeting, I've thought about the purpose for recording these meetings, and I cannot come up with a valid reason for them to be recording due to what everybody's always said, the minutes. Anybody can come to the meetings. I understand and I know that the Finance Committee meetings have been recorded to some extent so that the minutes would be correct. So you got details of what's going on with that. I have no objection to that. But as the other people have spoken, the purpose for it escapes me. And I've heard what the purpose was supposed to be, but it makes no sense to me when all the information that you need is readily at hand. So I object to it, and I hope that the council will turn it down.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Roy Nydorf, 1815 Oak Ridge Road. I wanted to also register my opposition to this proposal based on just about everything that's been said previously, but also feeling that for the tree committee, it could be beyond cumbersome since we do a lot of work out in the field, and the idea of just recording a conversation in one place doesn't really seem to fit very well. And I believe also that it would be cumbersome at best and create mistrust at worst. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Adrian Eckenrod, 5679 Timber Trace Way, Oak Ridge. I currently serve on the Parks and Rec, actually up for reappointment. Tonight, apologize, I'm kind of getting my voice back. I lost it from a cold. I don't have any prepared remarks, but I would again like to reiterate all the prior comments. From my viewpoint, as well as those that I've spoke with on the Parks and Rec, I do have concerns with the recordings of that. It will stifle those volunteers' willingness to speak out and give their kind of brainstorming remarks, knowing that that recordings are out there. I do think it will hinder recruitment as well as following new volunteers. I think it's, as it's been stated, that it's not really serving a purpose. The meetings are open. I know on Parks and Rec, we also meet with Zoom, but we're always, the meetings are available to read. The meetings are open to the public. So I don't really think we're serving a purpose, but we're definitely stifling some free thought from individuals. There was a lot of effort that went into with the new security system that went in there. There was a lot of thought. There was a lot of documentation went in with how that video can be accessed, how it's going to be stored. And I think that's something else to be considered is you have these volunteers now trying to speak freely who now know that their recordings are out there to possibly be used in a nefarious manner, which, in today's world, that's not something we're trying to look for. These are volunteers. They're just trying to give their creative thoughts. We're not able to enact anything. All we're doing is serving at your pleasure, providing recommendations. So there's nothing that we're going to be able to do nefariously that's going to be behind the residents, without their knowledge. Anything we do is simply a recommendation to this council. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? If not, we'll close out the first public comment session and move on to the town manager's report.
Good evening, Council. The first item I have is a request for the appointment of Allison Corrado as a regular member on the Tree Committee and Holly Stewart as an alternate on the Finance Committee.
The town manager proposed those appointments. Is there a motion to approve these appointments?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
Second item is a reappointment of Adrian Eckenrod as a regular member on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board.
Is there a motion to approve the reappointment?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And I do have one more item for you this evening. The town of Summerfield has requested that the town of Oak Ridge support their application for a Great Trails State Program grant for construction of the Piedmont Greenway in Bandera Farms Park. A copy of that letter has been shared with council, and it should be on your dais. This grant will help support construction of a greenway, of the greenway portion through Bandera Farms Park, as well as the equestrian trails. The total grant request, it's my understanding, those exact numbers are still being worked out, is roughly $300,000. The required match is being provided by Guilford County through their ARPA disbursement.
Okay. Any questions? If not, is there a motion to approve submitting this letter of support to Summerfield?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? I think it's a great thing because it's right next to us, so we're definitely going to benefit from it. So if there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Do you have anything else?
That's all this evening. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. New business. You want to present that?
I can. There is a resolution in your packet, R 2024-13, for the town of Oak Ridge to accept funds from the 2023 Appropriations Act, which includes $4.5 million for water infrastructure for the town of Oak Ridge. The funding, as previously indicated by the town during its CIP meetings, will be applied toward the construction of the water main along 150 from the Forsyth County line to a new elevated water tank behind Town Hall, in which we expect construction to begin shortly. The tank itself is being funded separately through a American Rescue Plan Fund Act allocated through Guilford County. The total disbursement for the town on this project from the state will be $4,432,400, which represents the $4.5 million minus an administrative fee that's retained by the state. This resolution in your packet confirms the town's acceptance of the funds per the terms of the appropriation and an agreement to use the funds in accordance with the approved scope of work.
Any questions? Were you getting ready to ask a question, Jim, or just pulling your mic down? Okay. All right, if not, is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And next, we have consideration approval of facility fee schedule and farmhouse community center alcohol policy. We all have had a copy of that. I believe there's been an updated addendum that's been passed out. Did everybody get a copy of those changes?
I was going to describe it
Okay.
before I
Yeah,
passed
okay
it
then.
out.
Yeah, why don't we let Ms. Snyder explain the
Okay.
changes, and if you got some copies to pass out.
Yeah, I wanted to, if you'd pass these down to Mr. Greason and Mr. Stone. I just gave Mr. Harton one.
been a little bit of
I noticed that on the facility rental page, the Farmhouse Community Center, it separated out the senior citizen rate. So that was one thing I immediately wanted to do, is to separate out non-resident and resident in the fee schedule that's in the policy document. So the last page of the Word document that you have in front of you, I'm proposing that we separated out non-residents and residents and nonprofits. And I also wanted to move the reference in the notes about senior citizens getting 2 hours free up to under the residence section. And then I noticed and talked to Ashley that the wrong verbiage was used, because I was at the Parks and Rec meetings where this was discussed. That what got into the document is for a minimum of 2 hours, but what they really meant was, what they really voted for was a maximum of 2 hours, which could also be stated as simply at no cost for 2 hours. And thereafter, based on availability again, additional hours may be booked at the resident fee level. So I rewrote that, I moved that up and had it stated as follows. Senior citizens 65 and older who are residents of Oak Ridge may rent the farmhouse at no cost for 2 hours, Monday through Thursday, based on availability. Additional hours may be booked at the resident fee level.
Okay, so just want to make sure that was included in the changes before we start discussion. We've all had a copy of this. We've had, I believe, sufficient time to review it. I'd like to open up discussion by each of the members, so we go around the room. Everyone can say something first, and then we can have kind of a free-form discussion with that, sir. Mr. Greason, comments?
You know, I'm just looking at the fee schedule, $20 an hour. I don't feel that's enough. It's an $800,000 project. Town has roughly, what, $380,000, $400,000 in it. You know, if we run it at 50 hours a month, that's $1,000. Will that cover upkeep? I'm not sure. So that's what I'm looking at.
Anything else?
That's it.
Mr. Stone?
I had asked the mayor to consider pulling this because really this should be still with staff and Parks and Rec. But if we're going to get the updates so that we can work through it, that's great. So I'll just run through these. On the first page, it's talking about on-site parking. It says additional parking may be available upon request. I would prefer that we have a consistent written policy for our facilities. Requested when, who requests, and who is the person that would agree to that request. I can see parking on the grass and issues as being a concern. So again, I would prefer that we have a written policy rather than accommodating requests. Again, talking about parking on the second page, it says, in some cases, additional parking may be available near grassy areas for larger events with advance permission from the park superintendent. In addition to the comments that I just made, wanting a consistent policy, what if the superintendent's not available? When do they have to make this request? And how would we know when permission is given? What if we give permission for 5 cars, but there's 20 cars parked there? You know, what guidance are we given on permission? So again, I think that a policy would clarify all that. That's all I'm looking for on that. On the alcoholic beverage policy, is there a written policy or mechanism on checking or verifying that they're in compliance with the alcohol policy? For example, someone rents the facility and claims that they're not serving alcohol. Does the park have the authority for someone to go in there during the event and verify this? Don't know. I'd like to see that in a policy. If we find out, do we immediately shut it down, or, you know, is it all the participants or just the renter? Music in the Park hires security. I don't know that we need anything like that, wristbands, monitoring, so on and so forth, but how are we going to monitor this at the facility? I think the policy needs to be clear on that. Event signage, 2 paragraphs down from that, use of event signage must be approved in advance by the town staff. Again, I think a policy would work better. We do have a signed policy within the town, but on the town park at the house, what type of signage would we permit? I'd like to see that called out so that it's clear to whoever may rent the facility. Vendors, this is a little disturbing, maybe. Vendors at the farmhouse must be approved in advance by the park superintendent or Parks and Rec Advisory Board. So just asking the question, what sort of vendors wouldn't be approved? You know, what's the decision criteria? If you think about planning and zoning, we have a usage matrix that says you can build this, but you can't build that in this area. Within the farmhouse facility, are there certain vendors that we say that we don't want? I mean, I would assume that all vendors that would suggest that they want to rent the place are legal vendors. So are we going to say that, no, they can't because we don't like their wares? I don't know. So I'd like to see, again, flesh out a policy on this stuff so that it's clear to whoever's going to rent the place and is clear to the staff, clear to the town council. Insurance. the next paragraph down, it says, commercial uses will require additional insurance of $1 million. Well, commercial says commerce. An art show that sells pottery or sells a print, something like that, that's commerce. Are we going to require a $1 million policy for an art show that may sell one of the prints? Because that is commerce. It's commercial at that point. So is there a way that we can reword that so that it's more clear what is commerce and what would require, what triggers a $1 million insurance policy? The inclement weather section doesn't sound like inclement weather at all, and I need a little bit more clarification on that. It's at the sole discretion of the staff, necessary for the intended use becomes unsafe or unsuitable for such uses, and/or if acts of God, war, terrorism, weather, and any other related event prohibit such use of the facility. A lot of that doesn't sound like weather. In such case, proposed events may reschedule and so on. I don't understand the inclement weather inside of a house. I understand that there's, outdoor things that would be going on, but again, I don't understand some of the verbiage there. Let's see here. The private events may include the following, and then it gives a list of, but then once again it says corporate events for training, networking. That's commercial. Do they require an event? I mean, a $1 million policy? And exercise classes, if they charge money for it, then that's commerce. Do we require a $1 million policy for that? Again, I just want to have everything a little bit cleaner for when people rent this, they know what they can and can't do, and we know that. It says public events must be manned at all times and overseen by a person signing the rental agreement. And then it says small-scale farmers, pop-up restaurants, catering events, gallery, music events, pop-up shops, and other short-term businesses and exercise classes. Well, those are all commerce. Are we going to require a $1 million policy? As Mr. Greason pointed out, we should not be giving away free time to the farmhouse. I think that the $40 and $20 rates are extraordinarily low. I'd like to know, how do we come up with the rates? What kind of analysis did we do? How much does it cost to operate the facility each day? And how do the rates compare with the businesses that now are going to have to compete against us? The rate seems surprisingly low. The people that originally voted for this project stated that the revenue from the rental would defray cost of maintenance and help pay for the facility. We know we're never going to get our $800,000 back, but given the rates that are proposed, I think we're just way upside down on that. Is there a non-resident fee for those that use the facility as part of the rental? So think of it this way. If I rent it and have the Summerfield Bobcat Owners Association to come, well, those are all non-residents. Think about the Oak Ridge Youth Association agreement. Do we charge a different rate for the individuals that are using it, not the person that rented it? Again, I think a policy would help there, or a little bit of clarity at least. I've already said the 65, the seniors thing just doesn't make any sense to me. There's a statement, fortunately, folks, I'm on the last page. There's a statement that says nonprofit organizations, community organizations, and town committees may apply to the Parks and Recreation Board for reduced fees. What are those reduced fees and where's that schedule at? Again, if we have a policy on that, then we can talk about it, but right now, it just says reduce fees. Does reduce mean zero? Again, I'd like to see the policy on that. We've already talked about event signage, but there's another place in here about signage and outside vendors and bounce houses and things like that, and the additional parking. Again, I think that the bones of this are good. I think that we've got a great start on it, but I don't think that we can solve all this stuff tonight. My recommendation would be that we send this back to the Parks and Rec and to the staff to work on getting some more detail.
Mr. Harden?
I didn't have nearly the amount of concern that Mr. Stone had. What I pointed out earlier and was partially
Councilman Horton, could you pull it down?
partially accepted was in the alcoholic beverages area that it originally said that if alcohol is served, a caterer must provide the town of Oak Ridge with a copy of its current ABC off-premises license. I requested, and it was added at one point, to that a licensed bartender be added. That was done. I think it also needs to be added at the last sentence in that paragraph where it says all alcoholic beverages must be controlled by the caterer or licensed bartender. The only issue I had, I'm over 65, so I didn't have much except to understand how that would be done. I would not like to see just every day somebody that's 65 or over claim the first 2 hours, which may in fact block other opportunities for folks. So I just wanted a better understanding of, I don't object to the idea, I just want a better understanding of how that would work and make sure that it would not be abused.
All set? Ms. Snyder?
Yeah, just want to address a couple of the concerns. And it may sound like a broken record here, but this is not an $800,000 project. It's a $650,000 project for which we received $380,000 in grants. So let's start there with accuracy. And then, hang on, I'm sorry, hold on one second. Mr. Stone raised several comments, and I want to respond to some of them. Okay. Parks and Rec wrestled over this, and I think they did a great job. I've been writing policy for nonprofits and for this town and for other businesses for 30 years. Policy is best when it doesn't try to envision every single thing that might happen. This entire usage would be overseen by the Parks and Rec Advisory Board and by the park superintendent. So when people have questions, when it's a question of like parking on the grass, we don't need to define that because that would have to go through Brock and the Parks and Rec Board. This is what they do at every meeting. They determine these sorts of uses. They get asked for all sorts of things, and they determine whether it's appropriate. What if folks cheat? The great thing, as I understand it, about this alcohol policy, and we are not policemen here in this town, we are not going to be monitoring events. If someone brings in a flask, okay, we don't know about it, but this policy, as I understand it legally, puts the onus on the responsibility on them. This clears the town of any responsibility and liability. Is that correct, Mr. Thomas?
The intent of a policy like this is to cause the users to ensure against their liabilities that they or their participants may incur, and to, as we've added language here, to indemnify and hold harmless the town of Oak Ridge. Nothing that we can do will keep the town of Oak Ridge or any other citizen from being sued. All we can do is protect a client. In this case, my client is the town of Oak Ridge. And all this council can do is try to ensure that if there was a suit, that the town of Oak Ridge will not finally answer for it. Other people will, or other insurers will. And so that's where you're, especially where you're bringing alcohol into the picture, that's what you're trying to do. Whether it's sufficiently, stated that, whether the verbiage is correct, that's the intent here. That's where we're going with this. That's the object.
Thank you. And my understanding is that staff and Parks and Rec looked at many other policies, and this is consistent both with those policies and with the requirements of our insurers, which is the North Carolina League of Municipalities. Vendors, I think the idea is Parks and Rec always approves vendors. So the real, I'm sure they can tell you more, but the real point is that they know who's coming on site. This is what they do every day. And so they wrote this, and my understanding, actually I should have said this first, but my understanding was that the part that's in council's purview is the alcohol policy and the fee schedule. The rest of it, we rely on Parks and Rec to provide to us as a policy document. And it is true, we can not approve it or choose to change it, but our purview is primarily over those two areas, the fees and the alcohol policies. I think you could fix that commerce thing if you wanted to. Commercial uses will require additional insurance of $1 million to commercial uses may. And so when you get the application for a commercial use, you decide whether you think it needs that level of insurance. I'm very disturbed at the comments that this farmhouse isn't sort of giving us our money back. Did we spend $2 million on new fields at Heritage Farm Park in order to get our money back? Did we spend $8 million on the park as a whole in order to get our money back? We built this our old park, not for the idea of getting our money back, but for serving our residents. That's why we have a Parks and Recreation Committee. That's why we have a huge commitment historically and ongoing to providing wonderful recreational opportunities for the folks of our town. One of the reasons why, one of the greatest supporters, one of the groups that supported this project most enthusiastically were senior citizens because they saw it as something for them. They can't use the soccer fields. They can watch their grandkids play, sure. And everything has many colorations on it, right? You walk with someone, and this farmhouse is no different. But Parks and Rec, it was wonderful to see them discuss this because what they said is we want our seniors, many of whom are on fixed incomes, to be able to use this. So they thought very carefully about what right now they think are going to be the times of less intense use. The most intense uses are going to be in the evenings and on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And they said, let's give that gift 2 hours to our senior citizens. They also made the rates low, but also consistent, with things like the Kernersville Community House. These rates are completely consistent with that. But the idea is this has been built with grant money and with town money, and we want our residents to use it. It was several times people said we are going to be able to increase rates if we get so much business we don't know what to do with it. Sure, we can make changes both to the policy and to the rates, but I think it's a wonderful thing that it's low for our residents. I think it's a wonderful thing that it's low for our senior citizens, and I think this has been carefully thought through, and I would approve it as is with the changes I suggested for clarification. Thank you.
the only two areas where I have a little bit of concern is the policy providing the seniors the ability to rent the facility for 2 hours for no charge. I do have some concern about the checks and balances on it. I think the intent, though, is what we should be focusing more on, is whether or not we should be looking at, should we be running a program on a regular basis in the facility that caters to seniors? So would it be a 2-hour period every morning, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or, well, maybe not Friday, but you know, maybe a couple days a week, there would be a scheduled time where the facility would be open, maybe there'd be a coffee pot running, and people could basically it'd be kind of like a drop-in time, where if people wanted to drop in and play cards, they wanted to chat, they just wanted to visit, that kind of stuff. So I think that would be something that I'd be more inclined to be working toward, so that we, like I said, it's been commented that we have focused on youth activities. The park is optimized for youth sports for the most part. We have playgrounds for young kids. We have ball fields, multi-purpose fields for the young and preteens and teenagers and things like that. And rightly so, it's a valid observation. We don't have much for adults. So I would be more inclined, I'd be very much inclined in one, getting a little bit more meat in there about what we're going to do there. Now, it may not get abused, and that's fine. I understand that a policy is the kind of guidelines, and Parks and Rec does a great job of overseeing things with minimal guidance, you know. But like I said, I do have some concerns about that, and like I said, I'd be more inclined to support possibly, like I said, a scheduled program that people could drop in on a regular basis, so they know that every day, maybe every morning from 8 to 10, you can drop in, that kind of thing. So I'd consider that. Not to say that I would turn it down because that's not there. I would like a little bit more detail on some trigger points for commercial activity. Again, I don't know that we need a lot of detail, but I think it would be helpful to have a little bit more wording about what triggers the need for $1 million policy. Because, again, staff does a great job, Parks and Rec does a great job of deciding that, but it's a different liability picture that we're talking about here. So I have a little concern that we might be helping them better if we had a little bit more detail in what triggers the commercial consideration, so that there's more guidance there, okay? I mean, wordsmithing, like the inclement weather session, I think is probably mostly mislabeled. Reasons for cancellation, something like that would be a header. So I don't have a problem with supporting maybe sending it back for a little bit more tweaking. Like I said, I don't, we're not in a rush here. The farmhouse is not going to be available to be used until February probably, because it's probably not going to be finished. The house itself is probably not going to be finished until probably about the end of the year, is what we're thinking, thereabouts. And then we have to finish the parking lot and the sidewalks and things like that. So we don't have to rush this. So like I said, I think it's appropriate that Mr. Stone has raised some questions he'd like to get some answers for. I have some, like I said, I have some concerns where I'd like to get a little bit more meat on the trigger points for commercial, like I said, to protect us. Because, I mean, I realize take it to the extreme. If someone's selling one picture, does that trigger the commercial thing? Is an exercise class something that would require $1 million policy? I can see somebody saying yes, because it is something that they're paying, they're selling it at. But then I also can see, well, maybe not. I don't know. But like I said, I'd like to have them take a little bit more time on it, taking into consideration what everyone up here has said. And like I said, we have the time to take a little more time for it. Have you looked at this agreement, Mr. Thomas?
Well, I was asked to look at the alcohol policy.
Okay.
Recommend the addition of the hold harmless provision.
Okay.
The rest of it, I pretty much defer to council and to the Parks and Rec
Yeah, okay, all right.
Department.
But, yeah, like I said, me personally, I would support. Now, we've each had our initial say. Now, basically, open it back up to follow-up and rebuttal and stuff like that. So, anyone got some follow-up?
I'm just going to ask
rebuttal?
Mr. Thomas, so you're okay with the alcohol? We're covered.
It's guidelines, and so yes, as it stands, it's, for this type of policy, it's probably sufficient. Everything else you all have been raising are obviously questions that ultimately council determines their sufficiency.
Okay, that's the only question I have.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Like I said, it doesn't have to be in order here, so if you have something
Well,
you'd like to ask.
I thought it was interesting that you suggested programs, and I do think that's a possibility. I think one of the things we saw as a benefit of this being a community rental facility was that people could bring their programs, that the town, at least at this point, doesn't have the burden of creating the programs. And I've heard that different groups of seniors want different things. So certainly coffee might be one of them, one day a week. But there might also be a quilting group that might want to go in for 2 hours at, 11 a.m. on a Thursday. These are great things for our town to have those people coming in and using this space. It makes, frankly, that to me is what makes this project worthwhile, is having people use it and make it part of their lives. And I think in the case of seniors, that's great. Now, maybe at some point, I could see us creating programs, but I think at this point, I don't think staff needs that extra burden. And I think we're basically kind of farming that out to the community. Say Phyllis Anders decides she wants to do a coffee thing every Thursday. Well, then she manages that, and the town doesn't have to.
Anyone else? Follow-up questions?
So,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, I was just going to ask, so the next step is for Parks and Rec to take the information from this and what? I mean,
Well, if there's support for us, well, basically, it depends on what council's desire is. Like I said, I've stated my desire is that I'd like to continue this and pass it back to Parks and Rec for some fine tuning. It all depends what three of us decide we want to do here.
I think it's reasonable to ask them to put a little more detail on what constitutes a commercial use. I think other than that, it's in fine shape.
I mean,
Mayor,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Harden.
As I think it was stated by Councilman Snyder, I thought we were supposed to be looking at the alcohol policy and the fees was what our focus was. And it seems to me that we made comments about the alcohol policies, and I think that part has been answered. There needs to be some addition, as I mentioned, I think. Maybe it's redundant, but I think it provides more clarity. But I think clearly alcoholic beverage section can be agreed to so that the Parks and Rec group doesn't have to go back and do everything. The fees, there's a question about, is it enough? What I heard was this was looked at from the standpoint of competitive schedules in the community. I think the comparison was to Kernersville. And I think from that standpoint,
after hearing Councilwoman Snyder, is that, that my request be included in the considerations rather than just yours and Mr. Harden's, respectfully. But I would prefer that we just single document and we do one vote on it. Can we see the whole thing?
Ms. Schneider, I apologize. You made the motion, and I should have let you speak first, so I apologize for not
that's
following
fine.
procedure.
Oh, that's fine, that's fine. I did, Councilmember Stone, I did address, I felt, the issues you raised, and if you don't feel that those are sufficiently addressed, we could certainly continue, but I think that's opening up basically 50% of the document that I think is in good shape, and I think Parks and Rec knows how to handle. Now, our chair is here, or our co-chair is here, and he can relay these concerns, certainly. But I would not be surprised if, the commercial issue that you both brought up, I see your point on that. So I did include that as something that needs to be looked at in my motion. If you would like to make a friendly amendment that the other issues be considered by Parks and Rec, that's fine. I mean, they're here listening to them. I'm sure they're not going to ignore them. I just don't think they're big issues, because I think these are things that Parks and Rec handles every day. And I don't think there's any disrespect meant to distrust expressed of vendors. I don't think, I think the grass issue, we have parking on the grass all the time for Ridge Fest and Music in the Park, and all this document says is that if you're having a big event, we may give you permission to have an area that would be roped off, is what I've heard discussed, just like we do for, but it's in the purview, anything like that would have to go through Parks and Rec and through the park superintendent. So I think, it's not like somebody makes this reservation and there's no discussion. If you're having a big event, there's going to be discussion with staff, and they'll say, well, I need to take this to Parks and Rec. And anyone who's planning a big event certainly isn't going to do it with 2 weeks' notice.
Mr. Harden?
I think most of council and maybe many in the town know that I wasn't here last month. I was out of the country for 3 weeks, but I have been to the last two council briefings in the past slightly in less than 2 weeks. And I thought, leaving those briefings, I thought very clearly, since this work is highlighted in yellow, that we were being specifically asked to look at the alcoholic beverage issues and the fee structures that were highlighted. And that's why I made my statement. It doesn't mean that I was dismissing the fact that council is responsible for the whole document. But I thought that what we were being asked to do was to look at those specific areas, and thus is the reason I seconded Councilwoman Snyder's proposal.
The main issue I have with partially approving the policy, I think we've clearly stated that the areas of the alcohol, the alcohol beverage section were highlighted because those are things that are most significant. But I don't think it's appropriate for us to piecemeal approve a policy. Because when we turn it back to Parks and Rec, we're asking them to take into consideration all the comments from everybody up here. And that may trigger them to take a closer look at a section and tweak it, or add some more words to it. And that's why I would be much in favor of just continuing this and passing it back to Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec has heard all of our comments. Ask them to take those comments into consideration. See what areas that they can adjust to make, maybe, like I said, in the commercial area, make it a little bit more clear about what's the trigger point for commercial. But I think we give them the flexibility to see the whole document, and they have the ability to adjust the whole document if they see fit. Where if we approve a portion of it, we'd have to approve, if they come back and say, well, we'd like to change this, they can do that. But I think it'd just be cleaner and easier, just say, hey, can you take this back, take into all our considerations, and come back? And also maybe, to the point of the fee schedule, maybe add a little bit of side notes of saying, where did you come up with the numbers and things like that? I asked, and I was told that these rates are relatively similar to other rates and things like that, but maybe that's something we might want to highlight and stuff like that. Mr. Bruce, did you have something?
Yeah, can I just offer my perspective on why we highlighted the section and asked council to specifically consider the fees and the alcohol policy? The Parks and Recreation Advisory Board has authority over park rules and regulations, so that's something that they govern. One of the rules in the park is no alcohol is allowed. While Town Council made a specific exemption for that for music in the park, but it was still very narrow. So this is essentially, having an alcohol policy at the farmhouse is essentially asking council to expand the exemption that they had initially granted. So we felt like that was clearly something that council needed to approve. Fees are the same way as far as like a budget item. Fees, revenues, expenses, those are clearly in the purview of the town council. The operational policies, we felt Parks and Rec Advisory Board had the authority to craft those and to adopt them. Council, as Councilman Schneider had said, I mean, you're both right. I mean, the council can choose to have oversight over any policy or administrative rule that any committee or staff devises. So in that sense, certainly any of this is open to your review and editing. But that being said, if you gave advice to Parks and Rec to say, please look at these things, we'd like you to consider them, and then they considered them and adopted a policy, we wouldn't necessarily need to bring it back to you unless you requested them to do so. Okay.
With that in mind, I think it's pretty clear that it would be helpful for us to approve the things that we agree on. And that gives us two benefits. One, we're moving forward, and it may not need to come back to us. And two, we make very clear to Parks and Rec, and if they change their mind, I mean, obviously they could come back and say, oh, we decided, or we found out something new that we should have in the alcohol policy. They can do that at any time and make that recommendation to us. But I'm in favor of moving forward.
So my question is, what are we really moving forward on? We can't rent the house out until February or March, so why can't we just look at it one time, bring it back, and that's my question. I just don't see
But we may not need to see it again.
I would like to see it again,
Fair enough.
personally.
Any other comments? There is a motion on the table.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a substitute motion that we delay consideration and approval of the facility fee schedule and Farmhouse Community Center alcohol policy and usage fees and policies until the January 2nd Town Council meeting, at which time it would all be presented for our consideration and vote.
Substitution is made. Is there a second?
Second.
That opens up discussion. Discussion starts with Mr. Stone. Since he made the motion, I incorrectly did not follow that procedure earlier.
Yeah. Again, we're not in a hurry. I'd like to do it as all-encompassing. I think that we have like I say, we have the solid bones of it, but we're in no rush to get this done. I think that taking 8 weeks makes sense, and I believe that everybody will, between now and then, can gather some comfort over this and get some clarification on some of the verbiage so that we can move forward together.
Mr. Greason.
No comments.
Mr. Harton.
I just basically feel that's unnecessary and that we can do part of it and then continue to move forward with the rest of the document.
Ms. Schneider.
Yeah, I have a question. Why January and not December?
I just figure given 8 weeks would be, again, we're not going to open up before February. So I just picked January as I think that's plenty of time for that information to go there. We can, certainly all of us will have attended a couple of staff meetings and we can hear of the progress and we can work together on this.
I think there's a benefit both to moving forward. In other words, when we're in agreement, move forward. The other benefit I see is that the sooner we get this document finalized and possibly put on the website, the sooner people start learning about what this facility is going to be. In other words, I'm sure there would be something indicating that it's not available for rental, and maybe that's something that could be added to it until, probably February 1st or later, whatever the date is. We might come up with an estimated date before we post it on the website. But this is a document that communicates what this facility is for and what it costs. And I've heard a lot of people getting excited about that. And I think putting it off till January is simply unnecessary.
I would support the motion if it was moved to the December meeting, because again, I don't like partially approving things. I understand that we typically are giving, I think there's sufficient questions about the policy that I'd like to hear the complete document come back to us so that we can consider it in its entirety and consider any cross influences, things like that. So like I said, I think December would be fine, so I would ask if you might amend your motion to the December meeting, because I agree that January means we're getting close to when we hopefully are bringing it online, and I would like to. I'd also like to make sure that by that time, we also have some idea of how the farmhouse is going to be managed, as far as how we're going to show it, how it's going to be opened and closed and that kind of stuff. I realize that's not part of this agreement, but I'd like to have some idea of how that's going to be managed also separately. I realize that's not here. So I would support your motion if you modify it to December
I'll
meeting.
gladly amend my motion to the December, I don't know what that date is, sorry, for the December Town Council meeting.
Okay.
So you need to renew the second.
Is there? Second, okay. Any further discussion? There's no further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
So it's 3-2. So we'll continue that. Again, you've done a great job. I just think there's enough questions that I'd like to see it go back and have you guys fine tune it, and that we look at it as an entire document. So, thank you.
Could I ask one question?
Yes.
Maybe out of order. Mr. Bruce, do we have any time frame when Barr says that they're going to be finished this time? This will be the third date.
No, we do not have anything in writing at this point.
Okay. Because we missed the, July date, the October date.
That's
So
correct.
now, I'm not really, okay, that's just all I had to ask.
Are you talking about the park or
No, I'm
the
talking about the farmhouse.
farmhouse? Okay.
Okay.
I'm
The
just
next- I'm
curious.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Next item is consideration and approval of request to record all committee and public meetings conducted by the town effective November 8th, 2024. Mr. Stone, I believe you are advocating for this, so I'd like to give you the floor first to introduce what you're thinking of.
Sure.
And then we'll proceed to council discussion.
So, for clarity, every prior town council has adjusted and tweaked their policies and procedures to provide a standardized, consistent best practice and clear direction for the town's boards, committees, and staff. This regularly occurs as the town grows and as laws and regulations change, and as we plan for the future and support our neighbors with open and transparent town management and government. We started this discussion with an open meeting that was recorded in March. This proposal is nothing more than a consistent application of the best practices that are already in use in the town, and in all reality, this is just a housekeeping issue. Through my conversations with the committee members, I was often asked if the meetings would be video recorded. The committees expressed their opposition to video recording, such as how the town council meetings are recorded today. This was not my original proposal. My proposal was about as stripped down as it can get. It was an audio recording available to citizens that wanted to come to the town hall and request a copy, just like the other 6 committees that are already audio recording. Apparently, other conversations have taken place since I've had these conversations, and perhaps there's been support gained on live streaming and future recording. I assume that the other town council members may have some discussions concerning this. I'll stop there.
Mr. Creason.
I think we should have a policy for everybody to be the same, but I'm willing to, if they just want to Zoom it, to wait 6 months and see how it works out, and then possibly record it. So that's my stance.
Mr. Harden?
I got a few thoughts on this, so bear with me. As a preface, I do not think that every town committee needs to be organized and run in the same way. All our committees deal with specific topics. Some are committees, some are commissions that need to follow strict codified statutes established by I think, the state of North Carolina legislature, and maybe in some cases, federal guidelines. Historic Preservation Commission is one of these. Members of this group have to do a lot of study and homework to gain the knowledge needed to be contributors to that committee. All of our committees have great members who actively participate. However, since each committee has specific topics, these volunteers have different skills and expertise. Members generally gravitate to their personal areas of interest. A key word here is volunteer. For example, before joining council, I was on the Finance Committee and the Water Committee. My wife Courtney has been on HPC, and she's been on Special Events Committee. Believe me, you would not want me to be on HPC and Special Events, or Courtney on Water or Finance Committees. It's just not our interest and skill levels. Depending on the committee, it sometimes takes a year or more to understand the control or the content, not control, but the content being discussed or the process being followed before a new member of the committee can make strong contributions. This is certainly the case with the Finance Committee. During the first year, most of the new members are usually quiet and are more reserved as they are beginning to understand their role on this committee, and I think that's true for other committees as well. For these reasons, and I'm sure there are many more, I do not think that every committee needs to be managed in the same way. I think the town council needs to provide direction and set expectations, but not tell the committees or the chairman how to operate. I believe the committee members will find the best path forward by freely challenging each other. Secondly, I do not think that these committee meetings need to be recorded. As I said previously, these committees members are volunteers with different levels of interest and expertise. I think recording their meetings is an unnecessary overreach. Recording them will only create, and that's been said many times earlier tonight, intimidation and restraint of the contributions of members. Most of our committee chairmen have told us this, not only again tonight, but previously when this was discussed earlier in the year, that they do not want, nor do their committees want, recorded recordings of those meetings. I think we should honor their request. Unlike us on the council, they are volunteers. They have not been elected like us. In the case of the council, I think it's appropriate that our meetings be recorded and kept for a reasonable amount of time until our minutes are recorded and approved. Finally, I think that this discussion, to me, is a bit of cart before horse. Instead, I think we should be discussing how it is that we get greater participation of Oak Ridge residents in our town committees. We need to generate a better bench of interested citizens to join our committees. Now, I don't have all the answers for that challenge. All of our committee meetings are open to the public. The minutes are prepared and can be distributed, they certainly are on the website. The meetings are not restricted, but if making these meetings more accessible to citizens by way of Zoom or streaming, then I'm open to be willing to consider that. This may provide the opportunity for some Oak Ridge residents to observe and work out what's been going on, observe the work of the committees, and to develop their own personal interest in how they might participate and get involved in the future. That's my comments.
Ms. Schneider.
Thanks. Thanks for your thoughtful remarks on that. Sure, this council can tweak policies for committees. That's good. But there has to be a reason for it. So I see this proposal as unnecessary because it doesn't stem from a need in our community and it doesn't solve a problem. Rather, it stems from a council member's desire to gain detailed information about who says what and how decisions are made without showing up. Now, granted, not everyone's schedules allow them to attend, but interacting face-to-face or even phone-to-phone is always a better way to get town business done. So it seems oddly disconnected from actual town business. See, we're here as council members and volunteers as well to serve the desires of our community, the needs of our community, not our own desires. So therefore, I respectfully disagree with this proposal. The reason we record some meetings and not others is because some of the statutory meetings like HPC and planning and zoning are incredibly complex, and staff is tasked with creating the minutes for those. But a lot of these other committees are essentially working groups where ideas are being tossed around, and I think that point was made. Ms. Pittman made that point, other people made that point. These are not things that, if you're listening to them without, you might not, you have no idea of the context, you don't know what they're looking at, you don't know what's gone before, you don't understand what they're trying to accomplish because you're just sort of in the middle of everything. So again, no town our size does this, and not a single, I just think it's really significant, not a single committee member or resident, other than on this council, has come forward in support of this proposal. In fact, most of our committees have voted unanimously against it, and some members have said they would step down. Why on earth would we risk that? Our citizen engagement in Oak Ridge is the envy of other towns, and our committee dedication lies at the heart of every single success of this town. I understand that theoretically, and I've heard that Mr. Stone has said this, that committee members can be replaced. Sure, theoretically they can, but Mr. Harton raises a good point. How do you replace experience and dedication? How do you mitigate against the sort of effect that this would have on people? So again, people have mentioned this several times, but this requiring recording signals that aren't of use to staff or to the committee signals a profound distrust of our committees. It's in fact a form of surveillance which Mr. Stone was dead set against in terms of visitors to our park. We didn't want anybody, and I agreed with you. That was a great point. We should not be surveilling people unnecessarily, and I think that applies to our committees as well. I can't imagine, if I were a committee member, I would be distinctly uncomfortable with this. First, this council sought 2 months ago to prevent council members from attending committee meetings. Now, that isn't legal, so that didn't work. Tonight's proposal seeks to make it, I guess, unnecessary for council members to attend, so instead we can listen to these audio recordings. Well, again, leave me out of this because I prefer interacting in person with the dedicated volunteers of our town. And as everyone's pointed out, there's no shortage of information about what our committees are doing, and there's no shortage of ways to get in touch with them to find out more. There are other problems with recording meetings. Most, and I guess we went over this, most are working groups. And what the concern is that if a committee doesn't know who's watching, who's looking for a gotcha moment, or who wants to make political hay or misunderstand or take out of context a remark, this will all stifle input. That point has been well made by all of those who spoke tonight, and I thank each and every one of you. Now, to add to the distress, there has been talk by both the mayor and the mayor pro tem about eventually live streaming all board and committee meetings. I won't even get started on how opposed I am to that. As Mr. Harton points out, They are not elected officials, they are not staff members, and to put them in the crosshairs on social media, which is the only place you can post live streams, would be absolutely awful. As for Zoom, I'm less opposed, but as Mr. Harton said, the decisions of how a committee operates, they don't need to be the same from committee to committee, and the committees themselves should make those decisions. For instance, special events has often opened up to Zoom meetings when asked to, or when it seemed appropriate for a member or someone who wanted to be a part of the meeting. We did have a problem with Zoom meetings for Parks and Rec many months ago with a very unpleasant Zoom bombing. So now there's a little more care that must be taken in how you let people in, which means that staff members would have to operate all of these. And staff members don't actually attend every one of these small meetings. In lieu of further discussion of this basically bad idea, I think we should be seeking strategies to encourage residents to attend town council meetings and committee meetings. Being present is how we create community. It's part of our American tradition. I also think there are great things we've talked about a couple years ago, having an Oak Ridge 101 sort of course where residents can sign up and learn all about all of the different committees over a series of 1 or 2 Wednesdays or Thursdays and get a little certificate and be honored here, excuse me, here at a town council meeting. These are the kinds of things that I think we should be doing and encouraging. Thank you.
Thank you. It is a difficult issue, but let me let you hear my comments. The purpose of public meetings is to ensure transparency in government decision-making, which includes discussion at all stages, whether fully formed or preliminary. Our shared goal should be to make committees and boards accessible to all residents. If our meetings can't handle providing transparent access, what are we doing wrong? We have the tools to make government accessible to everyone, regardless of whether they can attend in person. Not everyone has the flexibility to take time out of their day and travel to town hall. Why should someone who can't attend in person be deprived of a full understanding of what happens in a public meeting? Providing transparent and accessible government is fundamental to serving our community. Every resident, regardless of work, family obligations, or mobility challenges, should be able to see and hear the decisions that affect them. When I hear the response, just attend in person, it comes across as lacking empathy for those who simply don't have that option. Limiting participation of those who can be physically present restricts access to government processes. By making our meetings available to all, we do build trust, foster engagement, and create a more informed community. Transparency can be messy, but it's not optional. It's our responsibility. So why isn't recording or streaming of meetings a standard practice? Best practices are often emphasized, so wouldn't it be a best practice to have a consistent operating procedure for all meetings? If some committee meetings are recorded or streamed, shouldn't they all be or none at all? I understand there are reasons for some of our statutory ones. Our Finance Committee, which tackles tough issues, is recorded. And I've never seen anyone shy away from difficult discussions because of it. Recordings and streaming meetings help ensure transparency and consistency across all our committees. And it's a step toward the kind of open government our citizens deserve. With today's technology, we have the tools to make this a reality. Oak Ridge has a proud history of being leader in adopting innovation practices, from our forward-thinking lighting ordinance to welcoming the Mountains to Sea Trail in our community. In the same way, we can lead the effort to make our government processes more accessible to everyone, rather letting individual preferences hold us back. Like I said, I am in the technology world. I am comfortable with technology. I understand it's different for other people. But during the pandemic, all our committees and boards met via Zoom. So streaming these meetings means that people that can't get daycare or babysitting services can attend a meeting. They can watch the Mountain to Sea Committee decide what they're going to do in town. They can watch Parks and Rec, and I believe Parks and Rec is recorded? Okay, so Parks and Rec is recorded, Finance is recorded, so both of those are not statutory committees, correct? Okay, so those are examples of committees that are not statutory, those are advisory, but they've been recorded. So my goal is that citizens should be able to observe our public meetings based upon their ability to access it, because there are people that cannot come to these meetings physically. They can't drive, or it's difficult for them to get into a car, or they have children, or their work, and things like that. So what I would be in favor of is that we examine the committees and boards and work towards streaming them without recording. Because right now, anyone that attends any one of your meetings is freely able to pull out their iPhone and start recording your meeting. And the other thing is, these meetings are public. I think that's the key word we need to focus on. As public meetings, if you're saying something in a meeting and it's not appearing in the minutes because it's controversial, then we're not taking good minutes. So if you're discussing an issue that may affect some citizen in town, and I pull up the minutes and it's not there, have we done a good job of taking minutes? So if something's not supposed to be in the minutes, it shouldn't be discussed. So that's where I struggle with some of the arguments that these people are brainstorming these ideas and things like that, and they can't stand the light of day. If they can't stand the light of day, should we be talking about them? I frequently come up with off-the-wall ideas. You can talk to staff. I discuss it with staff before I bring it to council, and a lot of them don't ever make it to council because I talk with staff, and they say, hey, this is not such a great idea, or there's some issues there and stuff like that. So this is where I struggle with this, and I apologize that somehow this came about to say that we wanted to big brother you or monitor you or something like that. My goal has always been, how do I make these meetings more accessible to the residents? And yes, I'm a resident, so I'd like to be able to watch them from time to time, but we should be taking advantage of the technology we have today to make meetings accessible to everyone. And yes, long-term, it's going to come a time when we'll be able to do full interactive meetings virtually. And that's the way it should be, because then we have every citizen in town that can access the meeting can participate. And like I said, the person that's in a wheelchair that can't come to the meeting, why should they not be able to participate? Why should they be looked down upon and say, hey, come to the meeting? Well, they can't. So why shouldn't we take this technology and make it so that they can observe the meetings? And that's all I'm proposing right now, is let's make it so that people can preserve meetings. I'm also open to fine-tuning it and taking a look at whether or not some of the committees are maybe exceptions to it. But like I said, I'm very much in favor of moving forward with making as many of our meetings streaming as possible. Go ahead, Mr. Greason.
I just want to know where the distrust come from. I personally, I've talked to all four of you, and I haven't heard anybody say they distrusted the committee members. So I don't know, did you come up with that, Ann?
No, I didn't. I heard it from committee members who felt that this policy conveyed a sense of distrust of them. So I want to clarify something. Go ahead.
Well, I just don't see it that way. I'm with Jim. I'm with transparency. If I can't get to the meeting and I can't watch it on Zoom, surely I should be able to either listen to the recording or something if I'm out of town. Now, there's one committee, the minutes hadn't been turned in since March 27th. I'm not going to name the committee. They were just turned in last week, and they've had 4 meetings.
I want to...
So you can, I just don't understand that, because
I thought he was done.
I would like to go look at their minutes, and I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying they're just not there. We weren't on the website. So we have to call staff and then ask.
I think one of the things that we're missing here is that these committees, you were talking about, the transparency of watching decisions be made. The decisions are all advisory to council. Nothing can happen on these committees without council's either prior approval or approval afterwards, as with the policy we considered tonight. And the idea, you actually you mitigated against your own argument. In other words, it's great and it's natural to come up with funky ideas, lousy ideas, crazy ideas. Those do not need to be recorded in the minutes, because if the committee doesn't decide to move forward with them, either as approved by council or recommending to council, it doesn't belong in the minutes. Minutes are to record actions taken. So finance committee meetings, I remember someone saying to me, well, there's not much in those minutes. Well, that's because finance doesn't typically take action, make an action to recommend to council until the last meeting of their 4 or 5 month stint of meetings, reviewing all different portions of the budget. I think that, I don't think I meant, I think you understood me to say that you have to be present in person. What I mean by being present, I described earlier, is interacting with real people. So certainly there are people who aren't able to come at 10 a.m. on a Thursday to the tree board committee, but we've never heard from them, okay? So we don't have a problem. Again, there's no problem of people saying, oh my gosh, I want to attend this meeting, but I'm not able to come. So first of all, we don't have a problem. Second of all, there are lots of other great ways to get information, and I think the committee that you're referring to is one of the committees where the committee member creates the minutes. Sometimes they get behind, and all it takes is a call to town hall to say, hey, where are the minutes for such and such committee? And then town hall taps the person and says, where are those minutes? And it also reminds staff to maybe check in more regularly to get those. But I think in total, our minutes are just incredibly, our committee minutes are incredibly informative. They're, for the most part, promptly posted. As Patty said, she does them the next day. And special events, those minutes are kind of detailed. So I don't think we're losing anything in terms of transparency. We are completely open. This town is an open book.
Other comments?
So I want to address 2 comments, and then I'll get back to my notes here. Ann stated that I said committee members can be replaced. When did I ever say that?
It was relayed to me by someone else, but 2 people said it.
When did I tell you that?
You didn't tell me that. So it was hearsay. Thank
So
you.
name who said it.
One at a time, guys.
I'm not going to report that.
Of course you're not.
Thank you. But have you not said that?
No.
Okay, great. Then that's good news.
Do you believe that a standardized best practice is about distrust?
When I spoke to you on the phone, you said, I want to hear everything that people say. I want to hear who says what, who's against it, how a compromise is reached. Now, I do think people are interesting and our committees are interesting, but I told you at the time, I said, that makes me really uncomfortable. If I were the chair of a committee and I heard you say that, I would be uncomfortable because you're not doing it with them, in discussion with them, or in person. So I don't think that's appropriate.
Okay. So we're going to go to the with them in person in just a second here. But the North Carolina League of Municipalities and the state legislature released a joint statement a long time ago. This says the public's right to hear and see and know public business is of the utmost importance. All of our committees, customers and services, they're governed by open meeting laws. The state law is very clear on providing minutes for public meetings. The public body must maintain full and accurate minutes of the session. When a public body meets, it shall keep a general account so that a person not in attendance would have a reasonable understanding of what transpired. If you read the minutes of some of our committees, that's just simply not so. Without putting a burden on the committees, my original suggestion was that an audio recording would allow me going to our conversation when I'm traveling to Little Rock, Arkansas next week, that I could sit in my hotel room and listen to a committee and hear everything in context, and that would allow me to start generating questions about, what did you mean about this? Or tell me more about that. So statements have been made about a solution in search of a problem. So let me show you what the problem is and how this resolves it. Recording the meetings specifically addresses the concerns expressed by our committee members. They said that people might respond to rumors that they hear rather than understanding the context and the specific discussions. Well, rather than base their positions on rumors or interpretations or what someone told them that somebody else might have said about somebody, then these citizens can get a recording and listen to the thought process and the context and the discussions from their neighbor volunteers. Once recorded, the citizens can get the records of the discussions to review at their leisure, gain a better understanding of the conversation, the ideas, the proposals that may directly impact them and their neighbors, and they begin to formulate questions. Many of our boards and committee meetings take months to post, months. Several of them were 8 months past due until last week. To turn a phrase, information delayed is information denied. This isn't a criticism of the committees or the staff. It's simply a recognition that there's a best practice that 6 other committees have, and that their recorded meetings are accessible to the public nearly immediate. We've got 10 standing committees, and I can't personally attend all 10 committees in addition to the other meetings within the town. My volunteer efforts outside of the town council, my family obligations, and my employment. I don't know of any citizen that can attend every meeting. However, I can get a copy of the recordings of committee meetings and listen to them at my leisure or on an airplane as I travel on business. As an elected representative tasked with supporting all of our town's activities, I think our citizens would appreciate town council members being as informed as they possibly can be. Many citizens have the same issue, as Mayor Kinnaman pointed out, that they can't be at all of these meetings. And when they need information, it should be readily accessible to them. I can't fathom how an open meeting and a transparent process that informs citizens would be problematic. Our town records indicate some committee discussions aren't being reported in their minutes, and that's problematic. It's not a criticism of the committees. You're doing a meeting and you're having a free-flowing conversation. I get that. But the thing about it is that information is public information. So rather than have to stop to write down these thoughts and everything, an audio recording can resolve that. So when we discuss ideas, when we talk about comments that we've heard about sensitive discussions or big sky comments, and people wanting to speak freely, while I appreciate that we often discuss big ideas, future planning proposals, options, and so on, we can't do it in secret. We don't. Our roles as an open and transparent council, as well as our boards and committees, requires that each of us recognizes and supports that our discussions of the town are public business. When we discuss ideals, it's incumbent upon us to make sure that the public understands we're having future state talks or bouncing ideas or wacky ideas, whatever the case may be. When we explore ideas, we might create some concern, but that's exactly when we need to engage with the public and let the citizens know, and we can explain to them about the ideas and what we're discussing. You can't do that when you're trying to recollect what you said during a meeting, but the citizen can get a recording and they can go, I understand the context now. And that's all this is. We do this every year at budget time. Nobody has a problem with that. Right now, the Water Advisory Committee is almost exclusively big sky concepts and ideas. We don't have a problem recording those. They're dealing with people's property too. You know, sensitive, absolutely. But they understand what their job is, they understand their role, and they do it well. So this is just an extension of a standardized best practice that we have in 6 of 10 committees.
Sorry, one more, no minutes can be approved immediately. They take at least 1 month, and often there are gaps between committee meetings, like one committee might not meet for 2 or 3 months, so they can't approve those minutes until the next meeting. The other thing, I don't think anybody said rumors. What they were saying is that it's difficult to understand. Many of our committees act as working groups, so the discussions are spanning several meetings, and so you can do a shorthand. Well, the project we're talking about with the Nydorf project, the Nydorf files, and so things can be referred to in shorthand because it's a working group. The statement that you read from the state and the league does not mean, and I'm sure our attorney and our town clerk will back me up on this, it does not mean that every aspect of every discussion is recorded. No, it means that the decisions made, the recommendations, the points of action are recorded in the minutes.
Again, I take a different tack here in that my goal is that our government should be accessible to everyone, regardless of their personal situation. Whether that is because of business travel, whether that's because of scheduling, whether that's because of family issues, whether it's because of physical limitations to attend meetings. I understand 10, 15 years ago, there was no options for the most part that if you were not physically able to drive here to a meeting, you were not able to attend. 10, 15 years ago, we were not streaming our meetings like we are today. There are people watching us at home right now, which have the advantage of watching this public discussion of contentious issues. Issues that, if you just read the minutes, you may go away with a different impression of how far-ranging this discussion was. Our clerk does an amazing job of documenting what we're doing, but a written document doesn't always. I think everyone's gotten an email that you've read and you say, oh my Lord, this person's obnoxious. But if you actually talk to that person, it says, no, that's not what I meant. But if you're observing this meeting live, or even a recording, because our meetings are recorded, you can watch our meetings tomorrow morning if you like. Now, I'm not talking about these meetings hanging around forever. I believe we're moving toward a policy where any of our recordings, other than maybe council meetings, would be disposed of when the next meeting occurs. So any of their meetings, including the six committees that are currently recorded, we're considering that basically as soon as the minutes are approved, those recordings will disappear, and they will make a new recording of the next month. Now, we haven't formally adopted that policy, but that's where we're heading, is where I think we've had general discussions about. So the idea that if we did record these things, they would only be around for a month. Right now, we've kept them forever. Theoretically, you can go back and get a meeting from 5 or 6 years ago. We realize that that's difficult from a technology standpoint because the mechanism to play those recordings may not even exist. But like I said, my main goal is that a citizen or a resident should be able to observe and I would think in the near future, even interact with that committee. Because again, somebody that is interested in trails may not be able to come to the meeting, but they'd love to do it. Now, there's an old consultant story about, well, nobody's ever asked for this. There's an old consultant story that the local train company's having a meeting, and the residents come in and say, hey, we should have a train at 10 o'clock. So the train committee guy says, oh, why don't you go down to the train station at 10 o'clock and see if anyone's standing around waiting for the train? Well, they're not waiting for the train because there is no train. So to say that there is no demand for this is difficult to either substantiate or deny. Having it available, people may avail themselves of it, okay? But like I said, if you look around this room, yes, we have some young people here. We also have a little bit more higher attendance because of this controversial issue. But how often do we really see young people in this meeting? They're busy. They have family obligations, they have business obligations, and we should be working in ways to make it so that people can attend these meetings regardless of their personal situation. And if they're not able to attend the meeting, they should be able to review it at a later date. Now, like I said, I'm talking about these meetings would be available for about a month. I don't believe we're talking about putting them up on the internet. They would basically be available on our website because at the end of the month, they would go away and basically effectively be recorded over with the next meeting. So again, I struggle with the whole idea we have the word public in all our meetings. If a meeting is public, then whatever's said in that meeting is public. And it's like I said, we have the ability to make it so that people can see the entire meeting, avoid any gotcha moments, and they get a full understanding of what's going on. And eventually, like I said, they'd be able to participate. We're looking for ways to expand participation. This is a path to expanding participation. I know when actually, Lions Club now has a cyber club, because they're finding that younger people aren't really into meetings, physical meetings. They're fine with virtual meetings, but like I said, the Lions Club has a cyber club that doesn't meet in person at all. They only meet virtually because, like I said, they want to attract younger people, so. All right, further comments?
May I clarify? My understanding from the town clerk that we cannot destroy recordings every month, once a month. Is that correct?
I'm so sorry.
We can't destroy recordings monthly. We can't do, they couldn't be destroyed without an action of council. Is that not correct? So what we have talked about is in our annual purging of files, approving the deletion of recordings over, say, the past year or maybe the past 6 months. But we couldn't, it would be pretty awkward to do that once a month.
Well, we could take down any virtual recording each month. It would still maybe be preserved, and someone potentially could ask for a records request. But I would say that we basically only have one copy, the most recent copy available for unrestricted reviewing. But I think also if we are not using the stream copy, if we made a stream copy, we may not consider that our official recording. In that case, and especially for our non-statutory ones, I would believe we could probably adopt a policy that they would disappear monthly. Whether or not that's doable, we'd have to talk about that. But I'm just saying is that we can make it so that these meetings are basically available for about a month, and then that's pretty much it, you know. But like I said, the main goal is...
Are the recordings that we currently make, my understanding was that we can't post those to the website.
Cannot post them on the website.
Right.
We can post things on, like these meetings, we post on YouTube.
Right. So we can't post recordings to the website, just to clarify.
I see no legal, I don't know of any legal reason why we can't.
It's a technology reason, is my understanding.
So it's not a legal reason, we don't have the technology.
It's technologically not possible. So the only way that I understand that you can post recordings is via social media, YouTube, Facebook, Zoom.
I make a living in the IT world. I see no technological reason why we cannot post a file. You post Word documents on the website, right? These are just files. So if you can post a Word document on the website, you can post a MP3 file or
I
what.
think it's a capability as far as the size of the files.
Okay, so that would
website.
just be a storage issue. So I mean, like I said, these technology issues.
It's with our website company.
I understand. We can resolve these things. It's maybe a storage issue, but it's not a technical issue. It's a storage issue, if at all. There's no legal reason we can't, because if you go to vote, But I gotta imagine there's some videos on our website, aren't there? Like, don't you have some virtual tours of things or something like that? I'd have to look, okay. But like I said, that's solvable. But I understand, I apologize to the committees that it became a political football for you guys. My goal has always been, how do I expand access to these meetings to people that cannot attend in person? And there are people out there that cannot attend in person that would like to see this. I don't think there'd be a wave. I think in most Zoom meetings, a lot of Zoom meetings like the tree board, I would anticipate most of the time no one's going to join via the Zoom if we were to Zoom the tree board. But the ability to do it, I think, is something we should be moving toward. I think it's reality that in 5 years or so, we're going to have virtual interactive meetings that will make it so that the meetings can be virtual and interactive. It's just where we're heading. So I guess the question is, how do we proceed?
So I came prepared tonight with two different motions, and I'm asking the rest of the council, what do you think?
I've gone on record that, I'm sorry, you asked if.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My original thought process in this, and what we discussed all the way back in March, was simple audio recording. So that would be one avenue. The other avenue is that we maintain the audio recording. Anybody's audio recording, we'd keep doing that for the time being, if that's your current practice. But if it's not, then live stream the meetings, and then we can discuss when those live streams would become recorded live streams. So I'm
Can't live stream without recording.
again, I'm
You can?
okay. I'm ignorant about these terms. I just know when I say live stream, I turn on Spectrum and I can see the news. I kind of think that's live stream. It's live news. I may be totally off base on the terminology. Forgive me for my ignorance on that. But what I'm suggesting is, if our committees are sitting in here, they're sitting in the conference room, and the camera's on, that should be able to be broadcast. I don't know what that's called, but at some point, that broadcast would become recorded broadcast. And I'm totally okay with the setting up a policy. It could even be in our agenda that when we approve the minutes, we also approve to delete the prior month's minutes from our committees, if that's legal, and we can do that.
Just to clarify, the vast majority of Zooms that happen in the world do not get recorded. I live and breathe on Zoom every day, and it's very rare that we actually record the meetings. In fact, I believe most of the meetings that we held during the pandemic were not recorded.
But that's a virtual meeting, not a live stream.
No, a live stream is not recorded. A live stream.
But a live stream is public, is the way I understand it.
Understand,
Okay.
anyone can join that meeting while it's occurring. It's not being recorded, okay?
That's true of Zoom.
It's just a Zoom meeting that's not being recorded. Zoom meetings can be recorded, but the host has to do the recording. So what I'll be in favor of is basically experimenting with it, basically saying, let's start streaming our meetings without recording, see how things go. People will know who's in attendance. The Zoom, as you said, the way we have it set up now is you have to be let in. Basically, anyone that wants to attend has to be let into the meeting, correct? Okay. We have that set up so that you have to be let in to the meeting to avoid some of the issues we may have had in the past. All right. So, like I said, I'd be in favor of live streaming without recording, and then, basically see how that goes, get the feedback from the committees and boards, and then based upon that feedback and thing, we decide what the next step is. But like I said, my main goal is everyone should be able to attend the meeting regardless of whether or not they can be physically here. And that's what I'm basically saying is by live streaming without recording is you can attend any meeting you want. You don't have to be here. And I think that's what we should be working toward because we should be making our government as accessible as possible. And this is one way to make it accessible.
I think there are legal exceptions for HPC and planning and zoning. Isn't that true?
We have, for agenda purposes, lumped in BOA, HPC, and P&Z Planning Board with the volunteer committees. Those three are actually agencies of the town of Oak Ridge, required by statute, appointed by the council, but with separate independent obligations and powers over which the council has no say. But they report to council monthly, or at least those that have had business do, simply because that's the organization of the agenda. They are to be separated and kept out of this debate. Their procedures are statutory. And the volunteer committees, how they operate to effectuate their function of advising this board is up to this council.
But what would restrict us from streaming their meetings?
Whose meetings?
The statutory meetings. Why wouldn't we be prevented from streaming their meetings?
Nothing.
Nothing. So what we're saying is, we're not changing their procedures, we're just saying we're going to ask them to be streamed.
That's a different debate. That's
Okay.
whether
Yeah.
you're
I'm
gonna
not
stream
talking
meetings.
about having any changes in how they conduct their meetings. Streaming the meeting is just basically so people can observe them.
I think the question comes with participation. It's problematic if someone say, if you make a Historic Preservation Commission meeting open to the public by Zoom, don't you have to statutorily allow then the applicants to attend by Zoom, which we found to be very problematic during the pandemic?
Could be problems like that, and Mayor, I'm not sure it would be a good idea to require those agencies, those three, to stream their business, as opposed, again, to the volunteer advisory boards, which exist solely in terms of their function and how they operate according to what this board says, what the council says. The statutory agencies, I've said, HPC, BOA, Board of Adjustment, I think they have separate rules, on, especially on quasi-judicial matters with BOA and HPC, and that does implicate that if you open it up in terms of any kind of participation other than people who are there.
But we're not letting people participate. We're only letting them observe. Just like right now, we're being observed.
Understood.
We don't allow them to interact. So if someone wants to appear before us, right now, they have to physically appear.
Understand.
And it's the same thing for planning and zoning, same thing for HPC and BOA. If they want to be heard, right now, they have to be here physically.
And they will continue to have to be there physically
Right.
until the
but
law
I don't know how-
changes.
Yeah, I don't know how.
In those three.
But I don't know how streaming them would have any impact on that at all. So I don't see how we'd have to carve out an exception for them. If we're going to stream meetings, we would stream them just like anyone else.
I'm sorry, are you talking about Zoom still?
Zoom.
Because if
Stream
you're streaming
Zoom.
on Zoom, that platform implies participation. The council
No,
meetings are just on
no,
YouTube.
No. Zoom, you can make it so people can only watch. You can, you can make it, I attend Zoom training classes all the time where you cannot participate whatsoever. You only can watch. And that correct to our media person? So these meetings can be, because right now, I realize we use a slightly different program to do this, but Zoom's the same thing. I mean, this program probably allows two-way communication. Not this one? Okay. But like I said, Zoom, you can definitely set up the meeting so that no one can say a word. You know, they can't participate at all. So that's where I'm moving toward. If we were to do something tonight, I believe we definitely need to give staff time to look at look at from a policy standpoint and possibly further investigate any legal concerns. So that's one reason why we may want to consider you might want to consider tasking staff with some further investigation to see if it's appropriate for us to move forward with the different options you've been discussing, and also give us more time to, I have talked to some of the committee members. I have talked to some residents, and they said they would be open to the idea of being able to observe some meetings, because like I said, I have lots of friends that are parents that can't attend meetings. And they said, yeah, it'd be nice if I could maybe watch one of these things from time to time. I know some of the neighbor kids just love watching our town council meetings. So I see where people want to participate. They just don't have the time. They don't have the physical capability to be here. So I think we need to have a little more empathy than just say, well, attend the meeting. Well, not of all us can.
Nobody said that. There are lots of ways to find out what's going on our committees, not just attending. I thought I made that very clear.
I would like,
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Greason.
I'd like to see it put off until January. Let everybody investigate.
If there's
There's no use of
you can make
moving,
a motion
we
with
got
that to
Christmas
continue
coming
it.
up and all that, and let's just,
So you want to make a
Table it.
motion to continue this until, to continue this discussion until January?
Let me,
Excuse me?
Mr. Mayor, let me, what I think I heard was a compromise with the majority of town council members. We're not going to agree on everything. I get that. So I'm going to make a motion that effective Monday, January the 2nd, 2025, all meetings of the town committees, as well as any other public meetings conducted by the town, will either be audio recorded, if that's the current practice, or live stream without recording. Further, committees not currently recording meetings may opt for audio recording as opposed to live streaming, while staff explores the issues surrounding streaming and recording.
comments on that?
Well, the motion's been made.
confused, so I
Hold
don't-
on, hold on. No discussion. The motion's been made. We need to ask for a second. Is there a second? All right, the motion dies for lack of a second.
I would like a motion that we discuss it on January 2nd and then go from there. I would like input from Mr. Thomas. I don't want to do anything that's wrong. So I would like to continue it.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Is there any discussion about, so you're basically continuing it, discussion until the January meeting?
Right.
And asking staff and legal counsel for advice? Is that correct? I'm sorry. The motion I heard was you basically wanted to continue it until the January meeting and asking staff and legal counsel to give us some advice on how to proceed in this area? Is that what I heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I second that. Discussion?
I have a question. At our last meeting, it was suggested that we reach out, I think it was someone, a committee member said, why don't you reach out to committees and see what they think? Because they're deeply implicated in this. I understand the theoretical arguments about, transparency, uber alles, it's just like everything transparent, okay? I don't really want everything in my life to be transparent, and most people don't. But the meetings that really count are the statutory meetings and the meetings of this body. Other than that, they're mostly working groups. But the question I have is, Mr. Stone reached out to committee chairs, and I think we've heard from almost every committee chair, and not one committee chair or one member of a committee is in favor of this. So I think we have some work to do. If we really think this is a great idea, we have some work to do to bring people around. And I know you say, well, of course, with anything, there could be residents out there that would benefit from this. That's certainly true. However, again, most of these working groups are really in the weeds, and I honestly can't imagine someone understanding what's going on by watching or listening to one committee meeting. But why are we not taking into, this is my question, why are we not taking into consideration what we've heard from committee members and residents tonight?
I believe Mr. Greason's motion is taking into consideration. He's recognizing that this has created a tremendous amount of conversation, a tremendous amount of opposing opinions and things like that, that we should take more time into this because, so I think he is taking into consideration all the input. We've observed the pushback, and I think it would be very prudent to spend a little more time on this and reach out again to the committee members, reach out to the everyday residents, and see what some people think about that. Hopefully this generates some discussion with people that might have observed the meeting and things like that. The benefit of them observing the meeting is say, hey, maybe that is a good idea, or maybe that's not. I'd like to hear from some more everyday residents about what they're looking for, because that's the main goal, again. And I think it would give us time to kind of, settle down a little bit and hear more about what we're trying to do here, and hopefully clarify that, at least from my perspective, I'm not looking to look over your shoulder or catch you in anything. I basically just want to have the ability for residents that may be in Japan at the moment, and they might want to observe one of our meetings. They're very interested in Mountain to the Sea Trail, and they'd like to observe that meeting. I was in Italy. It would have been nice maybe if I wanted to watch Planning and Zoning Board, because they're addressing a significant rezoning. Those are meetings I tend to attend. I don't attend many meetings because I do believe the committees should be, for the most part, conducting their meetings without me looking over their shoulder. But there are times where it would be nice if I could watch the meeting, knowing that I can't participate. It's one thing. That way they don't have to worry about me speaking up. They just say, hey, Jim's watching. That's okay. So I think this will give us some time to decompress a little bit, get a little more information, and decide what the right move is. And, like I said, 2 months. December meeting is pretty packed, which is good. I'm sure staff's happy if we don't have this one in December. And also, I think we are going to move the January 2nd meeting probably to January 9th. Okay. That'll be next month where we set the calendar, just so you know.
Sure.
All right. So, yeah, I would say let's continue the discussion, which shows us that we're listening to you. We want to hear what you have to say, and so we have another 2 months to talk about it and come up with hopefully a workable solution that we can all work on. There's, like I said, the motion's been on the table for discussion. Anything else anyone like to say?
Mr. Mayor, so the question was asked, why don't we listen to our committee members? The same question can be asked, why don't we listen to the citizens that said they want to be able to review the meetings? This goes back to the people that aren't here for tonight, maybe watching on YouTube. And those are the people that accessibility benefit, they get the benefit of the accessibility on something like this. So while I appreciate every single person that comes here, every single comment that our citizens make, because it makes our town better, at the end of the day, we take all that information and we make a decision.
And I'll tell you, someone asked me tonight, what are you going to talk about tonight? And I said, we're going to talk about, and I stated it very, 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 I think very neutrally. I said, we're going to talk about whether or not we should record all our meetings. And the person said, well, why wouldn't you? And that was unprompted. So, I mean, I think we need to talk to more residents and see what they're looking for and see how that's going. So, all right, like I said, the motion.
I got one statement. As I said in my remarks, I would be open to learning more about Zoom and how Zoom works. I'm on Zoom all the time, not as much as you, but I don't always understand the mechanisms nor the etiquette or whatever is there. And I think that needs to be looked through and presented.
Okay, great. Any other comments? There's a motion on the table, it's been seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
2 nays? Okay, so 3-2. Okay, so will be continued to our January meeting. Monthly financial report.
Finally, something fun.
Okay, y'all managed to beat me for the most boring thing tonight. Just got to say that.
Up tempo, Sam.
Very rare that someone can outdo a CPA with financial statements on the boring scale. But anyway, it's all in good humor, folks. All right, on the financial reports, everyone should have got a copy of the financial statements, also a copy of the finance officer's report. On the financial statements, same layout as normal. We're holding assets of $3.31 million right now, liabilities of $70,503.96, and since this is governmental, that does not include our liability for the debt, which is on a separate schedule. For the month, we had revenue of $200,012.76. Expenses of $180,573.91 and added to fund balance $19,438.85. Our bank holdings are on Schedule 1, still maintaining with Truist. Bank of Oak Ridge has the bulk of the money due to the rate we're getting on the ICS money market. And then Piedmont Federal money market, we moved some money back over there from Truist due to a rate we could get on their money market account. Overall, fairly normal month for this time of year. The Schedule 2 has all of the detail for the expenditures and the income coming in and everything. Debt schedule, assets, and the water fund are all following. So things to note for the month. We have a wire transfer coming in of $18,753.03. In property taxes, $10,082.59. In motor vehicle tax for a total of $28,835.62. There'll be all the collections through October 31st. That is en route. For the month, we had monthly sales and property tax, interest. The tap fees and water usage fees are becoming fairly regular on the Water Enterprise Fund. Some grant monies, ABC distribution come in, and that was a good one again. Facility rental, special events, other park revenue, and donations to the Veterans Honor Green. We're still monitoring our investments. Right now, the interest rate market is fluctuating somewhat with the Fed having a rate decrease, and we have another rate decrease of 1/4 point that's getting ready to hit imminently. So I'm looking for our rate of return on the interest to drop a little bit. I think it's going to be some softening, but I don't think it's going to be a drastic drop. Staff was supported this month with grant compliance. We've got ARPA, SCIF, the CIP process, and all the work on the water system still underway. Audit is still underway due to the volume of all of our transactions this year with our capital projects. The auditors are working diligently, but we're not able to make the cutoff for this month, so it'll be next month that they'll be here with the audited financial statements. I'm trying to get those as far ahead of time as possible so that you can have a chance to read all of them. And also, I will buy the no-dos that you will need to read those governmental financials. But overall, everything's moving forward on that. The current credit card provider has been replaced with Truist. We're doing an overlap right now, making absolutely sure that no usage of those old cards for any subscription or any one-time per-year fees. We're going to make sure all of those are handled and transferred to the new card, and that any residual charges, credits, or any other activity. But we will be terminating the old cards in the very, very near future, but the new ones are en route and online. And yes, every time every one of y'all have updated anything, changed the PIN numbers, or done anything, it has set my email off multiple times. So thank you for not doing that in the middle of the night, but we got that project underway. Couple of other minor housekeeping things. Guilford County is going to a new system. I got an email today. They're trying to automate getting the tax statements out to the municipalities especially. And I had a conversation with Bill this afternoon right after that email came in. He's going to be talking with Gray and Creech about if we can accommodate that. They're basically wanting to have a user group that they can email to, and then internally we would have that as an email receiving from them, and then it would disseminate out. In our case, to me for recordation, and probably to Sandra for archiving. So they're rolling this out. The Guilford County folks that we're working with in finance and budget and the tax department are all working very diligently to try to update and become more agile and to get the things out with less work on our part and on their part. We had that little training issue with the September receiving some items. Last month, they got the ACH reversed. They got everything corrected and back out to me by about October the 7th. They're looking at rolling out this new automated process, maybe the 1st of December, but definitely shooting for the 1st of 2025. So we've got some good partners down there. They're working on a lot of new items to try to make life easier for us. They're also doing earlier forecasting on revenues, and they're trying to work and get that out. Actually, I'm going to a training with the fire department on that for their new budget process. I think it's the 13th of this month. So they're rolling out this with all of their partners that they're working with, the towns, the fire districts, sanitation districts, and everything. So we're seeing a lot of good movement in that area. That's pretty much everything I've got for tonight. Have no amendments or requests or anything else, just to get y'all this.
This may be a question for staff, but are we going to get a fancy, nice chip reader for the credit card instead of the one we have now that we've changed our credit card providers? Or
We've already gotten rid of our old credit card machine, but actually you could, oh, you mean for the Square Reader?
the Square reader, yeah.
I think we already got that.
I thought in the last Music in the Park they still were swiping, but we.
I'll have to check on that.
Yeah, we definitely want to get to the. We definitely want to get to the.
something new.
We definitely want to get to the tap capability. Make life a lot easier, faster. So okay, thank you. Thanks as always. I got an audit call. The auditors called me and I said nice things about you.
Well, I appreciate that.
Sam, is there a drop-dead date or a regulatory thing on the audit? I mean, we're not, pushing it 1 month doesn't seem like a big deal. You don't seem to be concerned about that, but is there anything we should be aware of on that?
No, there is the standard used to be October the 25th for some type of at least preliminary. The state has backed off on that because of two things. One, the more complexity in governmental auditing with additional GASB pronouncements, the single audit request in those items. The second thing is the availability of auditors that will do governmental work. So they have relaxed that somewhat. The AFIR is traditionally due October the 25th also. That has been altered in that the directions on it state not to complete your AFIR until you have your completed and accepted audit in hand. So the state has managed to adjust a few things on that. And that does bring up one other thing on the AFIR. They have an AFIR, and that's, I hate to use an accounting acronym, but that is AFIR. It is basically a report we have to do with metrics and data that is sent into the state. They have used the Census Bureau for probably close to a decade. They have now abandoned that because it was extremely time-consuming and extremely difficult to use. They have gone with a new system that is internal to the state treasury, and it looks and has an interface the same as what we're doing with the collateralization reports that we do every 6 months. So they're making some changes down there, but to your question, Mike, we're not going to get in trouble. As soon as the audit comes in, I will do the AFIR, and then that will be in full compliance. But by them altering and making that directional statement, don't do this until you have that audit. And by the same token, all of these audits have to go down and have a preliminary approval by the state before the auditor's given the green light to come out. So we're okay.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
We need a motion to accept the finance officer report.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Nay? Okay, good. Excellent as always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Committee reports. Finance Committee, I don't think we're running just yet. Water Advisory Committee? They did not meet? Okay. All right, we're going to meet next week. Again, public meeting, so if you'd like to attend, you're welcome to attend. Historic Preservation.
Good evening. Barbara Engel, 8524 Rosedale Drive, Oak Ridge. The HPC met for its regularly scheduled meeting on October 18th, 2024. The HPC continued consideration of a COA to November 20th for the demolition of the contributing structure, the H.C. Gardner House, which is next to Sherwin-Williams. It's located at 2204 Oak Ridge Road. The applicant wasn't present, but I understand he is available for the November's meeting. In our historic book that we're working on, it's been edited twice and going to the proofreader.
Excellent. Thank you. And Barbara, before you walk away, thank you so much for all your work to advocate for Western North Carolina. I see online.
Oh, you're welcome. I don't want anybody to forget.
I understand you're doing a good job.
Yeah, it really bothers me. And I have friends and family in that area, so
Thank
you're
you.
welcome.
Planning and Zoning? I don't think they met, did they?
No meeting.
No meeting. Mountain to the Sea Trail? I know it's been a long meeting, so I appreciate you hanging out.
Ann Steele, 8927 Grove Park Drive. The MST Committee met here at Town Hall on October 22nd. The Headwaters Trail has made it through recent storms in decent shape. There's been minor maintenance that has been done as needed, and a few drainage issues are being monitored and addressed. This fall, we expect 3 bridges to be built in the Carriage Cove area. All 3 will be built by different scouts for their Eagle Scout projects. And in October, the Parks and Rec Committee approved the Eagle Scout project for improvements at the campsite at Town Park. Lastly, there is a workday this Saturday that will be held in the Carriage Cove area. We will be meeting at Gray Fox Road at 9 a.m. if anyone would like to join us.
Any questions? Excellent. Thank you so
thanks.
much.
Thank you.
Conservation easement? Well, someone's talking up.
Sandra was there. Stephanie Farrell, 5839 Billet Road. The committee met in person at the Oak Ridge Town Hall on Wednesday, October 16th. We discussed the status of the two core grants that we have awarded to date. The Jack Blaylock property on Beeson Road is progressing through the process with the Piedmont Land Conservancy. At our meeting, we were waiting to hear if a survey had been scheduled, and that may have taken place, but I'll update you next month. The Nydorf-Hammond property, which was awarded a core grant for historic structure easement, is currently going through the lengthy process of being listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And once that's completed, the process started with Preservation North Carolina will be restarted. The Piedmont Land Conservancy has been awarded a grant to purchase the Alma Blaylock property on East Harrell Road, and that process is moving towards resolution, hopefully by the end of the year. Finally, we were saddened to receive Debbie Schoenfeld's resignation from the committee due to personal reasons. Debbie has been a valued member of the committee since its founding, and we will greatly miss her knowledge of the historic structures in Oak Ridge, as well as the Historic Preservation Commission process, and we thank her very much. We hope to add a replacement from the Historic Preservation Committee to give us that perspective, as that's how the committee was designed, the Conservation Easement Committee was designed. Finally, our next meeting will be held in person, but we've also can provide a Zoom on November 20th at 1 p.m. in the Town Hall.
Excellent. Any questions? Thank you as always. Special events. Do you need special dispensation for extra time? Okay.
Patty Domchowski, 7320 Hidden View Drive. Veterans Honor Green. Phase 1 is very close to being completed. Myself, Caroline, Anna, Bill, and Mark Reeves, the design landscaper, have reviewed what is left to be done and created a punch list, and actually did a second punch list. We anticipate having all of them completed for the opening. The second order of pavers has been received and has been installed. We have additional pavers that have not yet been sent in to Polar Engraving until we have the minimum number required. The Veterans Honor Green grand opening will be combined with the Veterans Day ceremony. Invites have been sent out to all the major donors and interested parties. Copies of the program will be provided to all the town council members probably tomorrow. Major thanks to Genevieve for all her work on the program. Also thanks to the Parks and Rec folks for all their help. The grand opening will start at 10, rain or shine, and refreshments will be served thanks to the Northwest Women's Club and the Lions Club at the Pavilion. All are invited. Thanks to Bill for continuing to work on Phase 2 and hopefully obtain some prices after the grand opening is done. We currently have over $18,000 in donations for Phase 2. Light Up the Night planning is progressing on schedule. Barbara Engel continues to obtain their craft and food vendors. Diana Macklin and Amy Karakoff continue to work on the new lighting decorations for the front lawn and lighted arches down Coco Lane. Our usual cast of characters will be on hand: Grinch Tractor Ride, Santa, Central Baptist Church Band, Oak Ridge Presbyterian Choir, Oak Ridge Elementary Children's Choir, Letters to Santa, and Destination Arts. On Monday, December 2nd, inventory and testing will be done on the luminaries by the committee members. The actual placement of the luminaries around the park will be on Tuesday, December 3rd, and we'll send out a social media blurb for volunteers to help. Any questions?
Oh, thank you. See you on Monday.
Thanks, Patty.
My wife continues to remind me that it's not Sunday. I keep wanting to show up on Sunday. Tree Committee?
Roy Nydorf, 1815 Oak Ridge Road. The Tree Committee has met on a few different occasions. We met with Forester Jimmy Holt, who's served in an advisory capacity about measuring our trees in the town. We've been working on, after compiling the information about new nominations for the treasure trees of Oak Ridge, we've been doing site visits, measuring trees. We're going to be adding probably 8 new species to our registry. We're also in the process of looking at nominations for the 2 trees that have been removed since our first registry about 5 years ago. And other specimens have come to light that are comparable to some of the species that we've already measured. So it's been a great project. We discovered at least a couple of founders trees on the Oak Ridge Academy site that we've been measuring as well. They're southern live oaks. So that's been exciting. Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you. Parks and Rec?
Adrian Eckenrod, excuse me, Adrian Eckenrod, 5679 Timber Trace Way, Oak Ridge. Sorry, it's been 3 weeks, and I'm still trying to get my voice back.
Okay.
The Parks and Rec Advisory Board met October 17th here at Town Council, both in person and over Zoom. During that meeting, we approved a proposal from the Piedmont Shakespeare Company for a performance of Shakespeare's Hamlet on Saturday, June 21st, 2025 at the amphitheater. We also approved an Eagle Scout project to add a picnic table with a gravel pad, map box, journal box to the existing MST camping area behind the Redmond House. We also reviewed again and submitted the Farmhouse Community Center policy to the council as you discussed tonight. I heard the council's feedback on that. We'll take that back and review. Just to reiterate on that, we will certainly address all the concerns and send back. And I think it'll be helpful if we also provide some of the guidance for how we got to where we got on those things. We looked at a lot of municipalities near us. We also looked at how the rental of the shelters are handled. And a lot of it was stemmed from that, particularly where we looked at some of the rates. For example, when we look at people come to us and we will perhaps, there's a 5K and we will allow them to use the shelter at no charge. And so we were looking at how some of the existing services at the park utilize today, but I think it'll help give clarity if we provide some of those examples as to what we were trying to accomplish through this policy. But I will certainly take that back to our committee and send it back to you with additional information and clarity. Update on the security camera and networking upgrades that were done at the park. That has been completed and installed. However, Heritage Farm Park is still not operational fully yet. We have ordered internet from Spectrum, still waiting on that to be turned up. It's being delayed, as Spectrum's telling us, and I've seen in other areas as well. A lot of the staff is currently in Western North Carolina, so it's delaying the installation of our internet at Heritage Farm Park. But the installation of the equipment has been done and tested with temporary internet connections to ensure everything was complete. Music in the park. We're working on the bands and sponsors for 2025 season. Excuse me. We've secured 4 out of the 6 bands have been booked so far for next year. And finally, ORA's team leadership group, with the help of town park staff, completed another successful Halloween Terror Trail at the end of this year.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Good job.
Question?
Yes.
Anticipating the farmhouse, historically, people have mentioned music on the
Yes.
porch or whatever it was. Is that being looked at yet, or is that just tabled until you know you have the?
Absolutely. That's part of where the inclement weather came in. The deck actually supports more. So we envisioned some people renting, utilizing the deck space in the areas. And similar to how we do now with basically the park superintendent's going to, when we have other requests for shelters or other events, to utilize that space based upon how the grounds are, how the weather's been, whether we're going to allow vehicles or such on that grass. So it's kind of done on a case-per-case basis. It would be organized through MyRec, which is how individuals rent the shelters today. They would use the MyRec app to secure that space. But we haven't booked any bands. We have some kind of bands in line, but the music in the park has grown, of course. Now, as you know, we do all of ours with sponsors. So we're looking to kind of recreate what it used to be when it was smaller, with some more smaller local bands. That would be kind of like a music on the deck scenario. But we absolutely do envision several of the usages and rental needs out of that facility will leverage the deck and the green space around it.
Excellent. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you.
Community organization reports. I'd like to recommend that we, at least for the Elementary School Youth Association, Millie Academy, remove them from the standard agenda and continue to invite them. But since we have public comments first now, they would be able to avail themselves of the public comment section at the beginning of the meeting. I don't know what your thoughts are in there. Like I said, they would still have the opportunity. Also, I know like with the elementary school, you know, they work during the day, so having them wait until the end. Also with the academy, we've been trying to encourage the academy to come over and maybe bring a student. I know that if the student was having to wait this long, they may not come over, so they may actually come more often if we just said, hey, avail yourself of the public comments. I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
I think the town clerk has usually said that to them, that if they want to give their report earlier, they can. But I'm fine with it either way.
Okay.
I like having them on the agenda, I guess, because that's a sort of formal invitation.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd like to see, with both, I'd like to see it move to maybe right after the fire department, before the public comments, but keep it on the agenda. So just move it to there would be my preference.
Maybe just let's think about it, and then we'll decide how we want to do it. Okay. We now have our second section of public comments.
No, we have the community organization reports. Triad is here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that
Mr.
this month?
Barbary?
I apologize.
Yeah.
It's not every month, so I apologize.
ABC.
It's every 3 months.
This is my favorite part.
Yeah.
You can move me earlier, too, if you
Yeah,
want.
well, exactly right, exactly right.
So Jim Barbary, 7903 Quiet Place, Oak Ridge. I'm reporting for the Triad Municipal ABC Board. The ABC Board, we did send our law enforcement division to the mountains earlier to help with the disaster there. For those who don't know, we do have a law enforcement division with the ABC Board. We had some excitement at the Oak Ridge store. Somebody ran into one of the posts. And so the way it came down, somebody hit the post. The Oak Ridge store called the fire department. The fire department called the building inspector. The building inspector condemned the store. So now we're at crisis mode because you can't shut a liquor store down.
Right.
Okay. So ABC called a engineer. And the engineer said, you can put a post in here and hold that roof up and you'll be okay. So the store stayed open, so the crisis was averted. Anyway, what you really wanted to hear from me is that the first quarter, July through September 24, the distribution to the town was $45,026. Any questions?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Now we're moving to public comments. Again, a period where you come up, speak your mind for 3 minutes, state your name and address. Over in the right corner here.
Dead horse, just a little bit more.
Okay.
Stephanie Farrell, 5839 Billet Road. So, as everyone is painfully aware, we had an election this week. And I am a huge believer in voting and elections, and I was very proud to serve as a poll worker for the Guilford County Board of Elections, and I was really proud to earn my second presidential pin, because all poll workers who work for presidential elections get a pin. So I was really proud to add a second one to my badge. And it blows my mind when I read about people who don't vote in elections. And then it goes even further when I see young people who say they don't vote. And why they don't vote is because they have a distrust of government, because government doesn't work for them. They feel that government doesn't listen to them, and it's a useless proposition to vote. So I could not understand that at all. I vote every chance I get, even midterms, even small municipal elections. But tonight, I have an idea of why people don't vote. I'm sitting here listening to this discussion that's gone on since March about a subject that people feel strongly in opposition against, and it is still not settled. And I believe it says something when you've gone around and polled the people who are most active in this community about their feelings on this subject, and you don't listen to them. They're your constituents, and you're not taking them into account. Instead, you're going out and you're going to talk to people until you find somebody who agrees with you, and you're going to use their voice instead of the people that have been working on this and participate in these meetings on a monthly basis. So I wanted to go to the ladies in the second row and say, this is not how government should work. This is wrong. And, but however, this might be a good example of what's going on in our government today. And it starts in the federal government and it comes all the way down here to local town government. So I just wanted to beat that horse and just put that comment out there. And always vote, don't forget. And thank you.
Anyone else to speak? I think Ms. Walraven has hand up just a little bit faster. Okay.
This microphone thing sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Can you all hear me?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, Ben Walraven, 5931 Pepper Road. A couple of things. This process of approving the agenda at the beginning of the meeting is a very good one, but I think it's a little bit cavalier because the agenda was approved and there was asked for any amendments to the agenda. There were no amendments made. And then on consideration, new business, item B, consideration approval of the fee schedule for the Farmhouse Community Center and alcohol policy. You took up the whole document instead of just those two features. And the way that you handle these complicated documents is you like eating an elephant, a bite at a time. So you had a chance tonight to approve that part of it and then put that aside and work on the rest of the document. So I think you missed an opportunity there. Writing procedures is not easy, particularly if you're asking volunteers to do it. So when you send it back to the Parks and Rec people, give them some specific guidelines. Don't second guess them when the document comes and they've done all the work, because as a volunteer, they got to go back and do the work again. It's just not considerate. The effect of recording the meetings. Sounds like you're going to add staff time to this. And I've heard people whose election motto was, we don't want to have to raise taxes, we don't want bloated government. Well, you know, you start adding these little things, they seem like little things, because you're parceling them off to other people. And then all of a sudden you overburden your staff. So be careful what you wish for on that. Filming or recording. You're going to have to train the staff or the committee chairs, and committee chairs rotate. So you're going to have, and you have multiple committees, so you're going to have continual training for these people. So take that into consideration as you consider this idea. Will recording these meetings eliminate the need for minutes so that you can reduce the time that the volunteers have to spend doing that? That would be something you should consider. If you can't do that, then why do we need the recordings? And for the farmhouse, don't set up rules and regulations and fee structures that discourage the use. You will make a self-fulfilling prophecy that it can't pay for itself by doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Adrian Eckenrod, 5679 Timber Traceway, Oak Ridge. Just wanted to state that it's been an honor to serve on the Parks and Rec Board, and I do appreciate the committee reappointing me to that board.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Mr. Logan.
Michael Logan, 5202 Rambling Road. First off, I'd like to say thank you for the support of the Oak Ridge community in my campaign for reelection to the school board. It was not successful at this time. They have not certified the votes yet, but I do believe that Mr. Coates will win. And I will say he was the second best choice. Now, with that being said, I'd like to say November 13th, there will be a joint budget committee meeting with Guilford County Schools, and I believe we'll also can include county commissioners also. Small groups, not the full group together, same as meetings that y'all have. It is a discussion, but this meeting will not be televised, will not be recorded, so the only way you're going to be able to attend it will be to be in person. I suggest you to show up at that. We, as a school board or a school system, are the largest budget within Guilford County. Our budget is bigger than the county's budget once you throw in the federal money and the state money. It's actually larger than the county. And I have always impressed on the public, be involved. If you want to know where money goes or see how it is spent, and understand, because there's a lot of misunderstandings over where and how money is spent. So be involved and come out to those meetings. Also, traffic issues within the school system is always a big discussion. I will say, because I am involved in several meetings within Northwest community, out in Stokesdale, if you have children that attend Stokesdale Elementary, they are going to have a discussion at their next board meeting, and I do know Mike Ritchie is going to be out at the community at that time to answer questions. And just as Oak Ridge Elementary, they have traffic issues out there, where those issues are actually backing up into a community, their issues are actually backing up onto the highway. So traffic is a big concern, and hopefully we can start getting some changes made to address those issues. And again, I'd like to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak, wish to speak? With that, closing the public comment section, we're going to be going into closed session. So we're going to have council comments before that. We'd love it if you hang around, but we'll do council comments first. Mr. Greason.
No comments.
Mr. Stone.
Sometimes progress is ugly, but progress nonetheless. Thank you.
Mr. Harton.
It's been a long night. I want to thank everybody that hung in here, and I think the committee chairs that spoke tonight and expressed their opinions, whether it was once or twice, depending on the public comments. I think at least I heard you pretty clearly. Mr. Kinnaman, I share a desire to have as many people give blood as possible. The United Methodist Church does a great job, and I happen to get back probably about 16 hours before I gave blood the last time for my trip across the pond. But they do a great job. The last thing I'd just like to say, and I think he left, but when I come to town hall, one thing I enjoy a lot is the painting by Roy Nydorf. And even though I won't be here, I understand he's having a thing in High Point somewhere. So I encourage you to go down and check out his artwork. I forget exactly where it is, but he's one of our local artists. And again, when I come in, I feel like I can step into that field of tobacco.
Ms. Schneider.
Hi, I want to thank everyone also for hanging in here. Special thanks to the scouts. I see Maggie, who's also a scout, is here. And I was so happy to have Autumn be part of the meeting tonight, and Sophia, and I saw Lindsay here. And all of these young women have been in my citizenship in the community merit badge sessions, and I just love seeing them anywhere I go. Thanks for being here.
Again, the blood, especially we're leading into the holiday season. Between now and the end of the year, just about every major religion has a holiday of some sort. We also have the Thanksgiving. So one of the best gifts you probably can give that doesn't cost you any money and gets you some really nice cookies and stuff is to donate blood. If you donate blood, you can help 3 people. Summit Church, I forget, they may have already had it, but they had or are having a blood drive very soon. Methodist Church has one every even month, the second Monday of every even month, so there's going to be one just before Christmas. So if you're looking to find a Christmas gift you can give to 3 people you don't know, but you can change your life, consider donating blood if you can. As to our process up here, no question, making policy has been described as making sausage. It's not pretty. It can take a long time. I think to some degree, because this issue has taken so long to even get to this point, is because we've struggled with it. So I would say the process is actually working. We've now considered, like I said earlier, we've taken your input. Mr. Greason made the motion. Let's take 2 months to sit on this and absorb it, process all the input, and decide what to go forward with it. So that's an opportunity for you to come to us and tell us how you feel directly. It's also an opportunity to reach out to other residents. The other residents in town are an audience and a stakeholder, so it's right to ask them what they want. But I think as messy as it looks, the process is moving because, like I said, we took a breath tonight, and I think a lot of people probably came tonight expecting we were going to make a decision. But based upon your input and things like that, we're taking a breath. And we're going to wait until January to see what we might do, what we may or may not do. So it works, it's messy, it's ugly, but I think it's working. With that, we need a motion to go into closed session to discuss a matter with the attorney-client privilege by providing instructions to the town attorney about handling or setting claims, litigation, or other proceedings per those numbers.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, we shouldn't be terribly long.
But you don't have to stay.
attorney. No action was taken. And now we're ready for a motion to adjourn. Is
Make
there
a motion we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you so much.